Welcome to the CP Media platform, brought to you as always by Team CP, your endurance coaching specialists. Back with us tonight, Richard Greer. I'm Angus Petrie. What have we got going on this week?
Oh, what are we going on? We've got a big show as always. It's always good, isn't it? Just who we get to share their stories. So we've got a really interesting show and a bit of a different one tonight compared to what we've had in the past.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I quite nailed the start this morning, but I'm sure, or this evening, sorry, but I'm sure we're going to get a schooling in broadcasting with our guest tonight, Richard.
We are indeed, yep. So we've got Brian Ashby. Brian Ashby is going to kick off the show, and then we've got a special Team CP guest. So we have to tune in to see who we got. Bit of a legend himself, and then also we're going to finish off with a bit of a different one. Kushla is away on holiday this evening, and we're going to talk to Simon Salmond, who's a physio based out of Auckland that we do quite a bit of work with. So we're going to finish off with him tonight, which would be good. So Brian Ashby, for a start, kicking off, he's been in broadcasting since 1989 when he first kicked off as a 19-year-old. He reads the news. You'll understand who he is as soon as you hear him. So maybe we should get him straight on and not beat around the bush and just jump straight into it. What do you think, Angus?
Well, we will, but just before we bring him on, I've got to say I was doing my due diligence as a good broadcaster, doing my research online today, and old Wikipedia, good friend of mine, dive on there to have a look up Brian Ashby, and I find that Brian Ashby was actually the 5th Roman Catholic Bishop of Christchurch. He was appointed by Pope Paul VI on July 11th, 1964 was Brian Ashby, but I'm going to hedge my bets and say that is not the Brian Ashby that is joining us tonight. Welcome, Brian.
Yeah, look, I'm far better behaved than that one. Far better behaved. You've taken 6 years off my life, actually, Richard. 1983 I started. So yeah,
really?
I'll go with 1989 though, because that makes me a little bit younger. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've got 1983 in my show notes. So there you go. That's a poor bit of broadcasting to kick off, isn't it? Or maybe that's part of it, is it? Just improving the truth.
There's not many broadcasters that tell the truth out there today anyway, is there?
Oh, no, that's not the way it is, honestly. No, the Donald Trump brought in the term false news, fake news. And look, the world isn't full of media conspiracy the way someone would like to paint it.
Good stuff, Brian. So maybe you should give us a bit of background for yourself, first of all, to kick off in terms of how long you've been involved in this. Why did you get into the sort of media for a start, and maybe even just kick off with what, over all the different events you've covered across the years, what's your favourite one?
Yeah, well, in terms of favourite events, there's two things really. Internationally, for me, it's the Olympics. It's all about the Olympics. I think everybody in New Zealand should be made to go to one Olympics, or should have the opportunity to go to one Olympics. People get excited about things like Rugby World Cups, which are great, but in my mind, they're just a club meet until you go to the Olympics and appreciate the sheer massive scale of what they're about. They defy description. On the national scene in New Zealand, a lot of people will probably guess that I'll say coast to coast. I adore the coast to coast. I always have. But for me, Ironman New Zealand is the event. It's the biggest annual sporting event that this country hosts every year. It doesn't. My feeling is, in the broader media, it doesn't get the coverage that it deserves. A field of around 1,500 every year, and over half of that field comes from offshore. They don't just turn up on Friday, race Saturday and go home. They're here with family, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, mum, dad, children, whatever. They're here for a long time. They bring an awful lot of money into the country. Ironman New Zealand deserves much more love and appreciation than it gets from the broader New Zealand public. So they are the events that for me matter the most.
Yeah, great. And you're not just a broadcaster, Brian. You've had a crack yourself, and you're still training hard. You've been doing plenty of Zwifting across the course of the winter, and a bit of Ironman action. Was it Western Australia?
Yeah, I've scraped together 4 over the years. I've done New Zealand twice, and I've done Western Australia twice. Look, I'm just one of the blokes making up the numbers. I enjoy the training process. I love, goal setting, working towards it, trying to fix my weaknesses. There are plenty of them, and I'm going to need about 5 lifetimes to be Cameron Brown, I think, to get to that level. I just really, really enjoy it, and the satisfaction, I guess, of being, on the same course at the same time as people like Andrea Hewitt, like Sam Warriner, like Joe Lawn, like Cameron Brown, Terenzo Bizzoni, Mike Phillips, Braden Curry. These people, an average person like me working a day job, can go out and be racing on the same course. I might interview Richie McCaw, but I can never go out and play a game of rugby. Actually, I could do coast to coast with Richie McCaw, I suppose. Probably not a good example. Dan Carter. I could never go out and play a game of rugby with Dan Carter, but I can go out and be on the same race course at the same time as Jan Frodeno even, and that's one of the cool things about triathlon and Ironman that I love.
And you're not just seeing them on the start line, you're also seeing them on the bike courses. They whiz past the other way and on the run course. So the thing is charging back. So you're sort of involved in their event and seeing how they're going as you're sort of doing your own thing as well, aren't you? Yeah.
And in relating it back to my day job, when I interview those people, they understand that I've got a certain empathy level with them, I suppose, as well, because I'm obviously not the same level as them, but I go through the same training processes, and that actually helps me in other ways with other sports people I'd interview as well. Rugby players, even if they're doing a recovery session at the pool and they sort of see me there regularly and so on, this bloke trains a little bit, and does a wee bit, and they sort of fire a few questions and that. So it's kind of helpful. The old QE2 Park pre-earthquake was like a cathedral for me, because there were about 27 sports that operated out of there, and it was sensational for sporting contacts and just networking and meeting people and sharing stories and ideas and things. It was brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. So what I'd like to do this evening is actually look at those 3 key events that you've highlighted for a start: the Olympics, Ironman New Zealand, and then the Coast to Coast, and just actually zero in, because you've had lots of experience across the course of the years of covering these events and competing in Ironman, and a bit of a tilt at the Coast to Coast as well back in the day. Really keen to get your thoughts and share some of those experiences with our people. So first of all, like 1 or 2 iconic moments, and then maybe an epic fail that you've sort of come across, summarizing each of them. So maybe we'll kick off with, speaking of the Olympics, the Olympic Triathlon specifically. What do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I the first Olympics that I was lucky enough to cover in my day job was Sydney 2000, and we were at the International Broadcast Centre in Sydney, and I was just blown away. And day 1 or day 2 of the Olympics was the triathlon. Of course, the world number 1 at the time was Hamish Carter, and the hopes were, that things were going to go well for New Zealand, and they didn't. They went really badly, and I think Hamish sort of finished in the mid-20s somewhere, and it was a disaster, and the New Zealand public were brutal towards him and so on. And the funny thing was, our studio was right next door to Canada, and Simon Whitfield won the gold for Canada, and the Canadians, they just thought they were in for the best Olympics ever. And they ended up having a pretty ordinary. The campaign just got sort of worse and worse for them, and they were sort of similar to New Zealand. It wasn't a great games. I think the only gold we got was Rob Waddell at those games in the single scull. So in triathlon, it was a massive event in Sydney at the time, and everyone came out for it. But fast forward, it kind of got forgotten a wee bit because New Zealand hadn't gone well. So we go forward a couple of years to the Manchester Commonwealth Games, and Simon Whitfield again repeats, gets gold. Peter Robertson, I think, the silver. And Hamish Carter just quietly goes about his business and gets a bronze medal. Heather Evans, a Kiwi, finished 4th, I think, in the women's race. And it got lost in the wash in a typical New Zealand style. That day there was rugby sevens, a gold medal for New Zealand, an epic battle in the women's netball. I think it went to double extra time, and New Zealand finished second in that. But those sports that New Zealanders get carried away about, Hamish kind of got lost in the wash. And you go forward another year or so, Bevan Doherty becomes world champion, and Hamish is forgotten about it again. Mark Elliott, who was doing programs for me at the stage, just contacts and so on, and Mark was looking after me, and I had quite good insight into what was going on. So we get to Athens, and I knew the work they'd done, based in the south of France. Chris Gemmell was in the Canterbury Tri Club at the time and was kind of controversially left out of that Olympic team. And these guys, Chris, Mark, they were telling me exactly how this race in Athens was going to play out. The hill on the cycle, if people can remember back, I think it was about a 400-meter climb that they did, a very steep gradient, multiple laps on the cycle. And the Kiwis were going to attack on that every lap, and they just smashed everybody. And bearing in mind that the temperature was close to sort of around the 40-degree mark, they just destroyed everybody. They'd been based in the south of France with Craig Watson out of Christchurch, who had been in that Olympic team in 2000. They'd been training there in the heat. And just watching the race unfold, the race plan for the Kiwi, I doubt if I've ever seen any event, any race plan as executed as perfectly as it was that day for both Hamish winning gold and Bevan Doherty winning silver. I was literally pinching myself as the race was unfolding, saying, "No, it can't be this real." It was that real, and there it was, gold and silver. Remarkable day.
Yeah, amazing. And what a great memory of all those the experiences that you've had. Remembering that and those
commentating it was amazing. Yeah,
fantastic.
Funnily enough, it wasn't my favourite race. That came 2 years later at the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne, and again I was commentating that. And one of my favourite competitors was Peter Robertson from Australia, who I'd seen at the 2003 World Champs in Queenstown, and I've never seen a guy dismount a bike like it. I thought he's going to face plant. He got off the bike going so fast. It felt like he was going at about 40 Ks when he jumped off the bike. And I thought, this is going to end really badly. It didn't. And he just took off and ran away from everybody. Him and Emma Snowsill won that day. But the battle at the 2006 Com Games in Melbourne, Brad Karlefeld won the gold. But the scrap for silver between Robertson, who was one of my favourite competitors, and Bevan Doherty, these guys surging back and forth and just smashing each other into the ground. And Doherty, of course, got the silver on that occasion. And watching those two, who were just absolute nasty, mean, dirty street fighters, Doherty and Robertson, for silver and bronze was kind of one of my favourite races. Yeah,
fantastic.
I love Brian, and I'm sure this is for everything you're going to talk about, but your recollection of that we're talking a few years back here, and your recollection of all those different things and how they played out, and this year to that year to that year, that is impressive.
I think it's kind of with the day job. You do sort of remember some things turn into a blur, like something that just happened at the weekend. I do struggle to remember, but things further back, you tend to have a great memory of. I can't work it out. Ironman New Zealand, there are some races that are really etched in my mind. Others sort of, you really do struggle to pull the names out again.
What are one of those two or three key moments in Ironman NZ this year?
The very first time I went there was in 2000. I've been covering Coast to Coast, and Ian Heppenstall, who is a sort of very well-known media manager out of Auckland, he said, "Oh gosh, I like what you do. Could you come and cover Ironman?" And I kind of wanted to get back into being a triathlete. I'd done Coast to Coast as a 19-year-old really badly many years before in 1984, and a triathlon in the warm-up, and then life gets in the way and things. But I always had in the back of my mind that I'd come back and be a triathlete. I thought, yeah, I'm going to go to that. So I go up there and I'm covering Ironman for the first time in Taupo. It's 36 degrees. It is nuts, and I'm dying under a tree in the afternoon. And I'm watching Thomas Hellriegel, the 1997 world champion from Germany, the Hell on Wheels, dueling it out with Cameron Brown. He won by about a minute. Lisa Bentley from Canada, who battled cystic fibrosis and became one of the best Ironman competitors in the world, fighting it out with Christchurch's Karen Balance for second. And it was like, this is insane. And then as the day wore on, I just saw regular people like me out there doing it. I thought, this is nuts. And some of them didn't look to be in that good a condition and so on. And, sort of, overweight or, different issues and things. So wow, this is a case of just regular people like me have worked their butts off and they have made it to the start line of an event like this. This is incredible, and so that was a massively inspiring moment for me. Other ones, a year later, Brown won his first of many, of new 13, I think he's up to now, Ironman New Zealand titles. And the year after that, Karen Balance, after 3 seconds, finally had her win, a really emotional victory for her. And so that was, those early ones were particularly special. But other things, Dougal Allen breaking the course record on the bike at Ironman New Zealand. The record subsequently been broken, but that record had stood for about 12 or 14 years. Steve Larson, a former pro rider from the USA, had ridden in the World Tour. That his record had stood forever, and Dougal went out there and smashed that. It was like, Dougal, multi-sport coming in and showing the triathletes how to ride a bike. That was tremendous.
Awesome.
Braden Curry, Terenzo, Mike Phillips, all, and Joe Lawn's great run, of victories. Gina Crawford. So those I adore. The first weekend in March. Every year, Taupo, and a little town, that all gets behind it and embraces it. It would be lost in Auckland, Wellington, or Christchurch, but a town of 20,000, it just goes on.
Yep. Brilliant. That's so good. Have you got your entry in for March 2021?
No, I haven't. The last one I did was 2017 in WA. My running's real. I'm back in the pool. My cycling's fine. My swimming, I'm back in the pool, sort of working a wee bit. My running, let's not even go there at the moment. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, good stuff. How long did it take from you getting all enthusiastic, turning up, working at the event, to actually put the swim cap on and actually do the event?
To Ironman.
Yes.
The first one I did was 2005. Yeah, 2005. I'd done lots of sort of club events locally and so on, and did the Philip Waring one up at Lake Rotoiti. And then at those World Championships in Queenstown, we were staying in a house. I mentioned Ian Heppenstall before, Jane Patterson, who was the previous race director of Ironman New Zealand, Jenny Rose. We're all staying in a house together down in Queenstown. I said, you're going to have to do Ironman, and they sort of bullied me and bludgeoned me into doing it the first time. And I only ever had intentions of doing one because it just, in fact, initially I had no intention of doing it at all. It was just about doing triathlons. But I suppose the more training you do, you break it down into Mark Watson, my old mate Mark Watson says, you can't eat an elephant in one sitting. And that's a pretty good way of describing these endurance events, I think.
Absolutely. And often we do get bullied into these things, don't we? That's how it starts. Maybe in the pub or something like that. You've got to do this right now. You have to do it. I think that's how I ended up doing Pioneer last time, wasn't it, Angus?
All good things come from peer pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Peer pressure is maybe that's a tip for the night so far. That's a comment to work with. What about coast to coast? Some iconic moments there, or it's always good for an epic fail, the old coast to coast.
Yeah, well, look, my personal experience as a 19-year-old, 1984, the second event of it, and you talk about peer pressure, that was exactly it. And James Daniels and I ended up on the start line side by side, and the year of the flood, and it was if there was a submarine category, I would have won that probably. That was kind of the paddling for me. But I think about it an awful lot about, who I admire the most over the years from coast to coast. You can look at Gurney with 9, and Braden and Sam Clark, and those guys have been incredible. In the women's, Andrea Murray's record along with Keith's stood forever. Kathy Lynch cast a really long shadow. Christina Anglin, people sort of forget about how good she was. Emily Mays. So there are so many really good competitors, but probably the one that I think stands out for me is as somebody who changed it up to a different level and crossed over from multi-sport to triathlon really successfully was Richard Usher, the former race director. And now we see guys like Braden and Sam Clark and Dougal Allen, crossing over from triathlon to multi-sport, and sometimes back the other way. Richard was kind of the first one who did it successfully, and won Challenge Wanaka. Did very well at Challenge Roth in Germany. I think he was the first New Zealander. He might have done sub 8 hours or got very close to it. And for a time, he was the fastest New Zealander over the iron distance. He's not now. We've had a few have gone under 8. Mike Phillips, Torrenzo a few times, and so on. But it was like he kind of changed things up a wee bit, and I think Richard was massively influential. And then you'd throw in the mix as adventure racing as well. What a remarkable athlete!
Yes, and he started in the snow, didn't he? Initially,
he did. Winter Olympian.
In the moguls, I think it was.
Yeah, freestyle skier. Yeah. Great, remarkable sports person. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And your own, going back to your own sport, Brian, the Ironman Western Australia, the last time you went and did an Ironman, you mentioned when we talked there a day or two ago about the true Australian experience. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. I sort of went back there. I hate cold water. I really hate it. It's not, it's an interesting sporting choice when you live in Canterbury, isn't it? You're not going to get the tropics, but I like it over there. And my wife Trudy's husband, my wife Trudy's father lives over in Perth as well. So Busselton's a couple of 100k south, and so I went back for a second time to do it there again, and it was sort of it turned into the full Australian experience. We're getting ready to go to the start line, and the course as it existed then, this massive long pier that goes out 1.8k was for forestry, and they couldn't bring it was reasonably shallow, so they couldn't bring the big ships in too close, so they had to go a long way out. You'd swim up one side plus another 100 meters, take it out 1.9k, and then out down the other side. And it was brilliant, awesome swim. But there was a shark. There was a big, scary dorsal fin, great white monster that eats. I never win lotto, but I bet it'd find me out of 2,000. The shark could get me. I know it. That would be my lotto win, being eaten by a shark. And so they cancelled the swim, and it was sort of like, oh, that's a bit of a bummy. I've come all this way, So that was all. So they sent us all off time trial fashion, sort of 10-second intervals, and away we all went. On the bike into the 180k bike. So the first lap I'm flying along, having a really good ride, and the second lap it just got, the forecast was for hot weather, and it didn't disappoint. It got up to 40 degrees, and
wow,
I've never seen anything like it. There were 275 DNFs that day, and I remember getting to the 144k mark, the aid station, and getting off the bike, and there was just carnage. There were people everywhere. And I just got a whole bucket of ice tipped over me, and got back on the bike and carried on. But people just lying in the red dirt on the side of the road, carried on going up the road. And the thing I like about the bike course over there, there's a lot of bike courses on Ironman are out and back. And I've got a terrible attention span. And so on this course, there's about 5 different points that you ride out to each lap. So about 10 or 12 points that you ride to over the whole course. And this one particular point, about the 160k mark, I could see the smoke rising as I was riding towards it, and more smoke. And in the previous lap, there'd been a lot of spectators. I got to the end, I said, what's going on? There's a big bushfire. The guy goes, you're one of the last to come through here, pal. We're closing off this section of the course. And a couple of days later, we drove back through there, and there'd been a huge bushfire. And some people only got to ride about 170k. I was lucky enough to do the full 180. They closed that section of the course because of this bushfire. So we had the shark, we had the extreme heat, and we had the bushfire. But prior to that, earlier, I'd seen a couple of guys down towards the beach who ride parallel to the beach in this one place. One guy carked out in the dirt, knocked off, and he gets up and he's dusting himself off, and another rider's stopped to help him out. He'd been bowled off his bike by a kangaroo. So I thought that was really good. That was the whole Australian experience in the one day, and their roadkill's really interesting as well. There's dead snakes on the side of the road and things like that, and we get possums and rabbits and things like that. They get dead snakes, and occasionally you see a kangaroo bounce along the fence line, and so for someone like me, it's like, oh, that's quite exciting, isn't it? thoroughly enjoyed the sightseeing day, really, apart from the extreme heat. But I get a bit fainty at the end when I get to the finish line, which isn't ideal. And hence I do worry about the run a lot. So it needs a lot of love. Needs a lot of love if I'm to get back onto a start line again.
Yeah, good stuff, Brian. That's one to go back to and have that Australian experience when we're able to, by the sounds of
it. yeah. I'd like to. I do like competing over. I'd like to do Ironman Australia or Cairns. One of those events would be quite good to do. I think to tick one of those ones off. Yeah.
Nice. So any long-term goals? Like are they the long-term goals that you're going to try and sort of shoot for, and any other sort of things that you're lining up for the season?
It's always hard to sort of make a call just around work commitments, because I do a lot of weekend work and so on. So it does make it a little bit difficult. But in the medium term, 5 Passes cycle tour at the end of November, and very much looking forward to that. So I've done that 8 times now. Usually I'm absolute rubbish, but I'm in really good nick. The last couple of years have gone quite well, and I'm really happy with how I'm riding at the moment. So, and I've got a new bike as well, because I had one of those roof rack incidents. Not driving into my own garage, but picking up my daughter from somewhere, and I destroyed my beautiful BMC SLR 01, the bike that heavens above, what's his name, the Australian Tour de France winner from 10 years ago. Cadell Evans, yeah. One of those, and I destroyed it. So I've got a lovely, nice new Scott with disc brakes and SRAM electronic gearing and all the rest of it. So I'm kind of looking forward to.
How good is that?
That's so good. I was talking to Cherie Stevens earlier today, who organises the 5 Passes tour now, and she was I'll have to let her know that Brian Ashby's been training hard, and look out. There's a rumour also that maybe there's some other big names, New Zealand-based names, as some Braden Currys and Dougal Allens and those sorts of guys might be turning up on the start line as well, potentially. So look out, Brian.
Yeah.
Did you get us a job? Yeah. Did you get us a job, Richard, commentating it for her?
Well, Brian, you might not be able to be commentating if you're winning it. So maybe we need to.
I won't be winning it. I'll be down a grade or 2 from them. The cool thing about those guys entering it is when 5 Passes started about 20 years ago by Peter O'Brien, the previous race owner.
Yep.
It was a long weekend of Ironman training for those guys. That's what 5 Passes was. That's the DNA of the event is Ironman. And guys like Melina, Scott and Karen Balance, Pete, Dave Lawson, these guys would go for this long training weekend, and they'd do these outrageous, rides, 650 odd K. But the end of each day's riding, they'd do things like go for a big swim in Lake Brunner and a massive run and so on as well. So, which heaven knows how they managed to do that, because I'm just cabbage at the end of each day.
Good stuff, Brian. Well done.
Well, Brian, it's nearly time to bring this trifecta of average athletes but extraordinary broadcasters to an end. But what I thought I might do is I'm really going to put you on the spot here right now, and I'm wondering if we can have, for all our listeners out there, a little bit of Brian Ashby. I know you've done a lot of commentary on Crusader finals and all sorts of things. So I'm wondering if you can just give us a little 10-second piece of commentary there, a bit of Brian Ashby for all our listeners out there.
What particular sport?
Well, I think we could probably have a bit of rugby. We could have two or three good phases of Crusader material.
Okay, that's all right. I was worried you were going to say synchronized swimming there for a wee bit, and I might have struggled. So, thank God for that. Okay, yeah, all right. I'm winging it here. All right, so, 30 seconds left on the clock, 22 all. Crusaders 5 meters out from the Hurricanes line. The scrum goes down, holding in the back. Fedu Kamu Douglas at number 8 releases now for Mitch Drummond. Unloads, big skip pass out. Richie Moanga takes it up to the line, spins in the tackle. Here's Jack Goodhue, Sevu Reece, they won't stop him. He comes round under the post. Crusaders get the win again, and not quite the bonus point this time. Conversion to come. Hurricanes disconsolate under the post. They knew they had it in the bag. They've blown it with some poor discipline in the last 2 minutes.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
If only it worked out that way at the weekend.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for fixing that for us, Brian.
Yeah. Is that the fix to the weekend? Well, that's the what do they call that? The alternate ending.
Yeah, it's not a bad ending. It's not the worst ending, but yeah, fingers crossed they can sort it out this weekend against the Chiefs, and I'm sure they will up there. And fingers crossed too for Braden Ennor coming back, and Fedu Kamu Douglas. Both of them missing that last game, so their injuries. I think teams being announced tomorrow will get one, possibly both of them back, and that'll be great.
Nice, good job, Brian. Good stuff. Well, I'll definitely make sure I list you in my quiz team next time we do that. And thank you very much for your insights and your enthusiasm.
Yeah,
fantastic, guys. Lovely to chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Cheers, Brian.
See ya. Hey,
well done, Angus. He wound up into it at the end there. That was awesome, wasn't it?
That's some absolute classic stuff. That absolute brilliant. So we've clearly got plenty to work on, Rich.
Yeah, I need to just go back to those old, just replay. Just keep practicing, isn't it?
That's right. Hey, Richard, we talked about there just quickly in there a bit about peer pressure and things. And don't you find that, well, I guess probably I'm one of them and you're one of them as well, that athletes that are easily talked into things via peer pressure are often fans of a bit of suffering.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? That's it sort of goes hand in hand, doesn't it, really? It's like, how well am I going to prepare for this? And let's just go and give it a nudge and see what happens. Yeah, absolutely.
Hardly prepared, but my brain says that sounds like a great idea.
And so-and-so tells me that I can, and it'll be sweet, and it'll be all good at the time, and then all of a sudden it's not so good, isn't it? And then they have to get to the finish line. But it's good for you. It definitely gives you a good story to tell, and that's a key part of it, isn't it?
Well, that's right, and just like listening to Brian there, he's got plenty of good stories to tell, and I'm hoping that one day I'll have some of my own to tell. So that's exactly a great way of going about
it. Yeah, absolutely, good stuff. Who we got up next there, Angus?
Well, we're going to bring old Roberty Bob on, are we?
Yeah, that's right. That's our undercover secret. Didn't realise that. So Robert has been a Team CP member for quite a number of years, and he's always got some plenty of enthusiasm to bring to the table. He's done all sorts of different things. He was at Pioneer when we did it together as well. Has a pretty good story about landing under a gorse bush and getting stuck under his bike actually in that one, which we might need to ask him a little bit more about. And so let's get Robert on. He's also actually had a good crack at your local challenge as well, in which I think was it a beer or an ice cream or a coffee that finished up.
Yeah, let's have a look. Robert, what is this? Is this coffee or a beer or ice cream?
That's a coffee. Yeah, that's a coffee.
And that's on the Sumner Beach?
It is. Yeah, there was a surf competition that I couldn't help myself.
And I'm assuming you started from your place, Taylor's Mistake there?
Yeah, that's the start line.
Brilliant. Welcome, Robert. Welcome. What an entrance you've just had.
Thanks, guys. No, much appreciated. Good to be on.
Good stuff. Give us a little bit of background, Robert. You've, as I mentioned there, you did Pioneer, and you've got a bit of swim, bike, run stuff lined up going forward. How did you get into all this stuff? What's a bit of background that you've previously?
Okay, so sort of, I grew up at a lot of time at Taylor's Mistake Beach, not a lot of time surfing. At school, I was really into, I was quite good at that old fast twitch thing, and discovered I was quite good at sprinting and that kind of thing until I was about 14, and then I was way too short to carry on. My legs were going faster than the next guy, but I was also disappearing off the back. And sort of through the teens and 20s, I really fell in love with a funny sport called fencing, particularly sabre and foil. And that really occupied my time. And I travelled all over New Zealand, a little bit in Australia, and even to other parts of the world to compete. So it was pretty cool. I did a little bit of running and biking around that time. But,
what sort of level did you get to with the fencing?
Fencing, I made it to Commonwealth champs. So
really? Wow.
Yeah, it's a Com Games, or just around that time. They ran it in Kuala Lumpur, the Commonwealth champs for fencing, just a week before the Com Games in KL. So it was pretty awesome going along to that and competing for your country. Yeah,
good stuff. Well, you just got to be careful who you're talking to here, don't we? Just don't say the wrong things at the wrong times. with the, a big knife.
I got to
on
have a
it,
sword in my hand, but yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's awesome.
no, and then sort of in the 30s, I would have had to become a full-time fencer and live in Europe to carry on. So life got in the way of that, and started doing a bit more running and biking and other things, and threw in some half marathons there. Talking of being plied with wine to decide to enter an event, there was a Rotorua marathon event that I was talked into over a wine. There was a number of Molesworth muster events that usually involved seemed like a great idea 6 months prior.
And we're just jumping in there. We just talked a moment ago about often they end up end up a bit badly. There's a bit of suffering during. Was there suffering during? How did those particular events go for you?
Yeah, at times definitely, but usually that was enough. Once the entry was in, that was enough fear that kept me motivated to keep going. Apart from one very bad incident, but we'll come to that in a minute. And then, kids, so that sort of put a break on things for a while. And then, kind of 2017, jumped into a boys' weekend Strava challenge where you had to ride as many Ks as you could between 1 January and get together in November. And that kind of kicked me back into the cycling sort of thing. And then, 2018 just turned into a big year with Pioneer.
We just need to stop there. How'd you go in the competition? The Strava competition?
That year in 2017, I won. I got the trophy. So I'm pleased with that year.
You say that year, so this has become a repetitive thing?
No. There's it's quite funny. Every year it just gets amped up that little bit higher, and now it's if you're trying to do anything other than cycle, it's a pretty hard thing to achieve. But still a lot of fun.
Yeah, so your in-house competition though happens every year still.
It certainly does, and it's still pretty motivating.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was almost won by one of the wives though last year.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Almost. Good on them.
Yep. Yeah, good stuff. Hide the phone, hide the Strava. You can't get out. Hide the bike.
Yeah, you bet. So no, that's a bit of background.
Yeah, good stuff. And you rode Pioneer and did that. And I mentioned at the start that you had a bit of an incident during Pioneer where you got stuck with your bike. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I don't know how, but it's just going up on the edge of a trail, big drop, a lot of bramble bushes on the side. Somehow, I don't know, I just rolled over. And on a mountain bike, you clipped in, and I didn't have time to clip out. It was all in slow motion. I was halfway down the bank, covered in head first down, brambles everywhere, stuck to my bike, still clipped in, and I couldn't move. I was literally help because I couldn't get my foot out of the clips. I couldn't lift myself up to get up the bank. And my teammate Jackie was brilliant. She was up the hill slightly giggling while another bloke came along and helped me out.
I guess your teammate didn't even
know. You had your phone out, getting an Insta story or something out of that.
Oh, good. Yeah, so there's some good teammate there. You might have to have a bit of a talking to at the end of that day, the team debrief.
No, there's some good moments definitely in that race. It's awesome.
Yeah. So let's just quickly talk about that. So when you did that, how did you find it? And I know probably there's a wide spectrum of athletes and people there, and we talk about people up the front going very, very hard, but they seem to have much more time to recover. Probably you guys were sort of further down the back of that field, which did that make it harder each day to go through the process of all the things you still needed to do after the race and recover and things? How did you manage that?
Yeah, absolutely, Angus. That was it was tough. There's some definitely long days. I think the worst one was 7 hours on that Queen stage. But how to process? I guess it was a whole journey for me. I'd never done any multi-day event before, and so the luxury of 12 months to really build up to it. And that's kind of where Team CP came in and just gave me the confidence to turn up on the day and do it. But you're right, it was a lot of back-to-back days training, getting your body adjusted to not just one day of hard out, but then picking up the pieces. And it was funny, you got, in the morning you woke up and you go, I don't know how I'm going to get out of bed this morning or how I'm going to stand up. And then the hooter would go off and you'd start and you'd be hell for leather, and all of those, all the pain, all the worry, it was just gone. You were just into it and in the moment and having a ball.
Brilliant. It's so good, isn't it?
Yeah, that event's kind of special because it was just an experience, and yes, it was fun to get some achievements along the way, but how cool is it to go riding for 6 days in some beautiful countryside and not have to worry about work and life and just live and breathe bikes.
That's right. And just talk about just being in the moment, because that's all you needed to deal with is just me right now and just experiencing this and focusing on what I've got to do in front of me. Otherwise you're upside down in the gorse bush and your teammates laughing at you.
Which is part of the fun too. I think I had a record there of coming off my bike every day, actually, to one extent or another. So in fact, was it 5Ks in on day one? I ejected, and Jackie turned around. No, not now. But that was a great way to set the day off.
Just quickly there, Robert, you just talked about you not having to worry about going to work and things, and I know a lot of people when they've got a great big event like this and a multi-day event ahead of them, and they're busy working and doing normal life, and in the however many months leading up to it, they get quite tired because they're dealing with this, and you start to think within yourself, how am I going to do this great big event and ride 100 Ks a day for 6 days in a row? I can't even do sort of 3 here at the moment. But how different it actually is when you take the rest of life component out of it and just only have the race and yourself and your teammate to worry about for those 6 days or 7 days, whatever it might be. Quite achievable in the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's so immersive and definitely achievable. You can do it, and there'll be highs and lows, and I think the lows make the highs really special. And crossing that finish line it's amazing.
Brilliant. Where are you at the moment, Robert? You're about challenging yourself and doing different things. What are you up to at the moment? What's the summer ahead got?
I've been playing around with a few different things in the last sort of 12 months, and what's next? I'm delving into. I'm really enjoying my swimming and heading towards that triathlon path, and so Challenge Wanaka, doing the half Ironman there is the next big goal, and clicking off a few other triathlons in advance of that is the plan. Good.
And so to summarize, like, why do you do this? What's your sort of why? What's the thing that underpins the reason that you get out of bed and juggle life and juggle family and all that sort of stuff to actually go and do these bike rides and turn up to these events?
Doing these events, doing all these sort of things, part of it's mental health. Like I've had some issues in the past, and I found that keeping motivated, keeping active really helps with just keeping you human and normal and dealing with life. And it gives a perspective, I think. But hey, it's also a lot of fun. There's a great community, and I think, look, hats off to CMCP. They bring together this really interesting group of people, and it's very inspiring being part of that. And pinging off other people's motivation and setbacks and so forth. So why do I do it? Yeah, fun, sense of achievement, keeping healthy.
Perfect. Good job. Well done, Robert. Well, thank you very much for sharing. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing the highs and the lows and everything else in between. And all the best for Challenge Wanaka. We'll be down there cheering on this year with a bit of a different course on the cards as well.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Yep, be a good challenge.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Okay,
thanks,
take
Robert.
care, Robert. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks. See you later.
Yeah.
Robert, Robert, like he is such a great Team CP participant and supporter, and comes to all the bunch rides, a lot of the running, just always got a great smile and a great piece of enthusiasm around him, and it rubs off on people.
Yeah, no, that does. It does, absolutely. And supportive is, I think, is what he mentioned, that he enjoys by being involved, but obviously that goes both ways as well, which is really cool.
Yep. Now, just before we move on, people hang around, because once we've talked to Simon, we're going to delve into our challenge that was your local. We've got some vouchers to give away. We've got a winner to pick. And then at the end of this, we've got a special little bit of video clip that some of you may have seen up on the CP community page from James, or a cracker of a Friday drinks with James that we're going to end with. But yeah, so stay tuned. But right now, let's catch up with Simon from Auckland, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a bit of an intro. We work with people all over the country and all over the world, but we've got a really good relationship with Simon Salmond, who's based out of Auckland. He's a physiotherapist. Future Proof Rehab is his business. He's got a couple of different clinics in Auckland, and the key sort of starter and the key point for us with working with Simon and other key physios around the country is actually that fence at the top of the cliff. How do we ensure that people are going to be able to do their event, to be able to train for that event and not get injured and not sort of derail things? So referring people through to Simon who are based in Auckland is really good, so then we can increase the chances of them enjoying the whole training experience and getting to the start line.
Simon, welcome.
Thanks. I was just like to say that when I was doing my coast-to-coast racing back in 2000, we didn't have. Would have been a lot easier if we had, but no, it'd be a great job. Great sort of camaraderie, and just having a good collection of people to sound off and have ideas and be part of is great. So I've been a physio for 30 years. I've been interested in running and triathlons and multi-sports myself. And yeah, I guess for me, what was quite interesting just to see a coast-to-coaster who came. He was top 5 for a couple of years and had problems with injuries. And we managed to sort out some of the things we'll talk about tonight. And he went on and won it, the next year. So, that sort of reinforces to me, it makes me feel good about what I'm doing, because I know that, it makes a difference. But also from my own history, it makes me more efficient, whether I'm cycling or running, takes away pain, and makes me good for the next 40 years. We're basically a pretty finely tuned machine. We move in multiple directions and planes of movement, particularly the running and things like that. So we want to look after ourselves. It was interesting also, the first talker spoke about the Olympics, and at Rio, all those at podium finished for New Zealand were those that could do 85% or more of their training. So, we want to try to avoid injuries and get you at your best. Enjoying the training actually can be, one of the great parts of it. You want to enjoy the journey, and racing's great, but also along the way is good. So
absolutely.
What I thought.
So Simon, just on that, that's something for me, in terms of running around and doing the things that we do. That's something that I find personally that I like to go. I've got a couple of good physios that we work with that are local, and to just go and check in with them maybe once every, probably 2 or 3 years. I've been sort of finding to actually just not so much sort of fix problems, but actually just how am I going? And because we do adapt and adjust to what we do in our day, if we sort of depending on what our job is and how we're moving. So I found that to be a really useful thing personally to be able to do on just a regular basis, and not just I'm good, that's it. Actually, let's just checking in. And someone like yourself that's an expert in movement and bodies and how we move is a really good way of doing that.
Yeah, a bit of a warrant of fitness, annual, or if you've got a bit more of a history of illness or injury, then we, can update that. But just a couple of key things I'd like to sort of pass on tonight that you can check yourself when you're training or outside of it, just to see that have you got a movement distortion that may be, making you slower or predisposing you to injury risk for any one of those things. And we looked at we'll look at knee pain in cyclists tonight, but there's quite a good crossover to knee and lower limb problems in running as well. So the photos I sent through, we just, were those there, Angus? Otherwise I can just explain them. That's almost starting up, I was going to say back to front, and it kind of is a picture of the hip and the glutes. This is a really key muscle group that we try to target. It's I call it the sort of running and weakness. If this is weak, we get a lot of problems with poor tracking of the kneecap. The kneecap, hundreds of thousands of times the knee will revolve over the pedals. Small problems can become major if we don't, look at the alignment and also the strength of the stabilizers and the tightness of muscles that can pull the knee out of position and cause friction syndromes, bursitis, or tendonitis. If we just had the next shot, perhaps, of think it'll go back the.
Unfortunately, I've actually only got one shot there that came through. Sorry, Simon.
That's okay. So I just had a couple of shots.
Just jumping in for those people that are listening to this opposed to watching this, that was a picture of all the little muscles in our sort of effectively glutes in our hip area, wasn't it? And if depending on how they go and how active they are, that'll then affect our thigh and then how the knee actually tracks. So that's a really key part to focus on. Is that what you're saying, Simon?
Yeah, that's right. The posterior gluteus medius minimus are pretty much a key muscle stabilizer group. I've seen a couple of cyclists that have had quite marked pain in the glutes from a bursitis, and also then developed kneecap pain. So there was a shot. I'll just, as you can imagine, when your knee is tracking over your pedal, your knee wants to be keeping over the foot. Some people like to ride with a foot slightly externally rotated or turning out. That's fine. It sometimes also then means that the knee has to track a little bit further out. People can tend to avoid that because of the extra wind resistance. You just have to be aware that if the knee comes close towards the center frame, you'll get problems with that poor alignment. And basically what we don't want to happen is for the kneecap to track inwards and then it rubs on a little groove. And probably won't show on a model of the knee we've got, but the kneecap basically wants to be sort of running up and down in the knee joint. If the kneecap has a chance to drag across, then you'll get friction syndromes behind the kneecap next to the actual femur of the leg. And that's what we're trying to avoid, this uneven irritation in here, by making sure that the kneecap runs vertically, knee over the foot. So the things you want to try to achieve.
So just as we're riding there, Simon, so a quick little test for you as you're riding your bike. Probably up a bit of a hill is always good, as you're putting a bit of pressure through you and a bit of effort, is just to look down and check in your knees. And if your knees are sort of collapsing towards the top tube, if you haven't got knee pain, there's a potential that you've are going to head in that direction. So that's the test effectively.
Yeah, and another thing is that's also quite sensitive. That's a great tip too, just to be aware at all times where your knee and body is sort of tracking in space, for want of a better term. But just if we were going to have a look at a bit of a test, just trying to get that to show. I'm just going to do a standing knee test, and what I'm doing is standing on my right leg. And what I'm going to do is just square on. I'm just going to bend knee down, try to get it over my toes. If my knee tracks inside the line of the big toe, then I've got basically an issue with potential malalignment, and that can be the gluteus medius, and those key glute muscles that are causing the main issue there. So if the knee tracks inside the midline, i.e. inside your big toe, then you really want to be looking at ways to address that. So that'll be a strength issue. The glutes we've just talked about, but also it can be a tightness of muscles down the outside of your thigh called the iliotibial band. Now they get tight usually because the glute is not doing its job. If the knee is tracking in, then the IT band develops tightness. So just lying on a roller is not quite enough. We need to address that mal-tracking, the top tube, like Richard said, but we also need to strengthen that glutes when we are going hell for leather, pushing uphill or in a sprint. We need to make sure our knee is tracking under load. The next key part is also then doing a IT band stretch. And one of the favoured ways, there are a couple of techniques you can do. But again, if I just try to explain this, if people are not, so we basically have our foot resting on a chair or an armrest. We've got to pelvic tilt so that we can have our back in neutral, and then we feel tightness through the front of our thigh, and then we bend to the opposite side. So if I just turn around and show this way, so we have the foot up on a stool, pelvic tilt, and come back towards the foot. So we feel it tight through the thigh, and then we bend away from that side, i.e. if I'm stretching the right, I'm bending to my left, and we should then pick up tightness on our IT band, and also occasionally in the front section of the IT band and lower quadricep. So those are key muscle groups. Stretch the IT band and the quadricep and the hip flexor, and then also look at the weakness that can be, and the poor alignment that can be contributing to it.
Great, good stuff. So, I mean, as you say, that this is a, oops, sorry, not sure what happened there. This is a really key thing in regards to the like cycling, and just it's not just about knee pain, is it? It's actually also about efficiency. And if as I'm riding my bike, if I can work on some of these little things, it's not just going to decrease pain, but it's also going to help me ride my bike faster. And that's the key point as well, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, around Taupos, it can be quite tragic. The number of riders we get that have been pushing it up to, a couple of weeks out before race day, doing their big rides, maybe tapering down to race pace, and just have swollen, painful kneecaps, bursa. You really want to get on top of these early. See if you've got that poor alignment issue we talked about, standing on one leg, bending down, trying to keep your hips level. If you struggle to hold the pelvis level, then you really want to try to load up that heel, get the glutes to fire. And again, it comes down to when you're going round on the pedal, see if you can get a little bit of the glute just to fire as you pull up with the hamstring. But again, that can be quite a difficult thing to do. So talk to your coach and discuss that. It's a bit hard to do it remotely. You don't want to throw it out. But if we can be aware of the biomechanics happening there, and we haven't talked about, firing your deep abs and making sure your pelvis is in alignment. Often this goes with a weak pelvis on one side and glute. You may notice your pelvis is twisted, or you have a bigger gap when you're standing on one side to the other. And that can be because the pelvis is rotated forward and causing a irritation on your back. So these tend to leapfrog the longer you've been training. So we want to really get in there and unwind some of those positions and get you running at your best, pain-free, and enjoying it more.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Simon. And just one wee quick tip to add to that in terms of activating your glutes while you're on your bike, I find actually just standing up, getting out of your saddle is often a really good way just to actually get that hip extension and therefore get those glutes working. And then you can sit down and then you go, oh yeah, I can feel them a little bit better now while you're on your bike as well, which will help all those things that you're talking about.
Yeah, and just wake up your nervous system too. It can be quite sedentary and quite sedative for the nervous system to be stuck in one position. So to actually get out of your saddle and stretch, fires up your nervous system, wakes up. There's a part of your brain that has a body map of the brain. If you're only using a very key part of it, it tends to become a little bit less coordinated and sedative. So by standing up, it refreshes what's called the homunculus, which is your body map in your brain. So that can be quite useful.
Cool.
And I'd just like to add in there too, Simon, that, if you have got pain, especially if it's bike-related knee pain and things, actually the first step is to have a look and maybe find somebody that can do a proper bike fit, check your bike fit, make sure a lot of knee pain is actually derived from saddle height, from either over saddle height or under saddle height. I think you'll find that a lot of, whether they be saddle issues, knee pains or whatever, actually all start and stop around that saddle height. It's got quite a lot to do with it. So if you have got issues, I suggest that, one, get them fixed. You're just the man there in Auckland. But two, have a look at your bike setup and see where that's coming from.
No, absolutely. I didn't quite caught, I had that on my list of notes. So it's alignment and bike setup. Absolutely. That 25 to 30 degrees of knee bend, really efficient position for the knee to work at in the quads. And just remember some of those stretches too. There's time, just one last little stretch for the nervous system. Kick your head off's great, where if you're sitting there, you straighten your leg up and look up at the same time. So you can be sitting doing it, foot up, head up, and then foot down, head down. And you do them, you're not holding them, just constant motion. but that just helps mobilise your nervous system. A lot of pain nowadays is being shown to come from the nerves rather than just the muscles themselves. So we need to get that nervous system really flexible and sliding and gliding.
Brilliant. Thank you for your insight, Simon. That's absolutely fantastic. So obviously you're based in Auckland. We'll put the notes at the end if you want to get in touch with Simon, but also that's the beauty of, I guess, the whole lockdown thing, that also you can be touch based with remotely if you're not in Auckland or around the country, or haven't got someone that you can refer to and help you out locally, that obviously you do some online stuff as well.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to.
Yeah, good job.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for your support and being a key part of our team.
Cheers.
Cool. Thanks, Simon. Good job. Well done, Angus. So just to finish up, we've got our challenge, as we mentioned. So we've got your local challenge that we put out for the last few days. One thing I said last week was everybody that has put their photo, put the adventure, sat down with a beer, an ice cream, a coffee. We've got a whole bunch of coffee culture vouchers coming out. We've put them in envelopes, and you're going to actually get some actual mail in the mail. How about that, rather than just an email? So they're ready to be sent out tomorrow. But have we got a winner? So we've got coffee culture prize, and then also a pure prize back coming along to this person.
We have, but first, just before we get to the winner, I just want to actually another group of CP athletes that did go to their local in the weekend was our Sunday roadie session. Sunday roadies every Sunday, starts and finishes from Coffee Culture Beckenham. There's this Sunday's team soaking up the sun. And then here they are at their local Coffee Culture, one of our wonderful sponsors. So very, very good to see.
Yep, and all levels, just come along, have a good time on your bike, but be challenged as well to a level that you want to.
Absolutely. But tonight's winner, or this week's challenge winner, on his trip to his local, went by multi-modal. First of all, started with a beautiful paddle. Now, just look at the water there. Would you just look at the state of that?
Absolute glass. Yep. So that's in Littleton Harbour. Yep.
And then out of the boat and off on a very, very frosty run. The transition period section there looks a bit treacherous underfoot.
Yep. Yeah. But
and really well rewardingly deserved. Finished with a beer, a lovely Castles and Son beer at Governor's Bay Hotel. Nick Duggan, congratulations. Great effort. And thank you so much for participating. Richard will send you your prize.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's brilliant, Nick. Great to have you part of our team, and thanks for encouraging others and getting out there and doing it.
Correct. Right, Rich, well, that is the show for this week. Another Wednesday gone.
Yep. What's your key learning from today's show, Angus, to wrap it up?
Listen, I guess, key learning, not sure about key learning, but Brian Ashby, that was absolutely a highlight. He is such a passionate guy with such a photographic memory of some great sporting events of the times go past. He's an encyclopedia of New Zealand sport, just about. And how good was that call at the end to give us the alternate ending to last weekend's game?
Yeah, exactly. And I think to wrap up, peer pressure. How good is peer pressure? I think we need to encourage that going forward and put it out there, sign up, whatever it is, and then we'll help you figure out the how.
Small disclaimer, kids at school, peer pressure is not a good thing.
Yeah, good, thank you. Could have got myself in trouble there. Yeah, what a good wingman I've got.
We think we can get into trouble with peer pressure. It's a whole other game over there. But yeah, so that's right. I encourage you to pressure somebody, pressure your mates, pressure your running buddy to enter something. Just often great things come from somebody else's encouragement.
Good job. Well done. You've saved that for me, Angus.
That's what I'm here for, Rich. That's what I'm here for. So, Rich, thank you for joining us. Back next week. Now, next week, Coast to Coast special.
Yes, that's right. We've got some good, awesome guests lined up. We're going to check in with Matt Bateman's. So he's the guy that we're going to follow through to the Coast to Coast that's doing the tandem team for the first time. Check in with him. And then we've got another couple of awesome guests that we're going to talk to as well. So that's next Wednesday. First Wednesday of every month, we're going to be doing that.
Kathmandu Coast to Coast. Brilliant. Righto. Well, as I promised, Rich, tonight, so don't forget, get over to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, hit like the bell so you get all the notifications hook us up on Facebook, everywhere we are, Instagram, all those places. We'll be back, same bat time, same bat channel, but to go out with one of our other CP Media broadcasters, James Oren, in Palmy North the other week. Friday Drinks with James.
Kia ora, friends. Good evening. It's James for Team CP Media, and it's a very late edition of Friday Drinks with James. In fact, it's so late that it's not actually Friday anymore. It's Saturday. So with that said, I'm going to call tonight's edition Saturday Shots, Six Packs or Goon Sacks, depending on whatever mood you find yourself in this Saturday evening. And I'm in Palmerston North. I'm in location. You might say, goodness, what on earth are you doing there, James? You've actually found yourself in hell. Well, it's not quite like that at all. Now, don't be so hard on Palmy. You know, I think Palmy's actually not that bad. And to be fair, Palmy and I have kind of got a bit of a kindred spirit going on. We sort of share a little bit of mutual respect for each other. And the reason for that is because, like me, and Palmy and I sort of find ourselves being fair to middling in a lot of ways. When it comes to a lot of things, I find myself fair to middling in my dedication to my training and healthy eating and that sort of stuff. And just like Palmy and its surrounding towns and surrounding hangers-on like Ashurst and Otaki and Shannon down the road and Woodville over the way and the wintry Waiuru up the way up the line towards the central North Island, we're just kind of getting by and doing our thing. So after a big day pounding the pavements and pounding the pavements for the national carrier and different ports around the place, I could have settled for some pizza, some pasta or some fries with a PH, but usually I thought no. Tonight I'm going to try and get myself some sort of something semi-healthy, and when I do that and I frequent Palmerston North, which I do every now and again, I usually find myself frequenting the Peter Pit. Now, the Peter Pit offers all sorts of cheap and cheerful options for people that are a little bit precious, pretentious, or just need a damn good feed like myself. So tonight I've had my Peter Pit, and tonight I'm calling this my local. Usually I'll be at home in West Melton and I'll be running a train on a pastry and a flat white of that mean little bakery in West Melton, but instead, Peter Pit really hit the spot tonight. Now I'm going to head back to my fair to middling accommodation, which happens to be Palmerston North's finest, and rest my head and peruse my way south in the morning after resting the pins and pounding the pavements all over the North Island. So with that said, I do hope you've had a great weekend. Do keep your posts coming up for all of the good things that you've been doing out in your local, and we'll see you again really soon. Good night.